going to present an ongoing research that happening in ISCM that collaborate with the work of a student in the studio, the last year studio. It's called Towards Urban Metabolism, a mega landscape structure of alternative productive parks for Ho Chi Minh's metropolitan parks. The first thing is I'm going to kind of framing what exactly the urban metabolism, the global and Vietnam context. So the reason we need urban metabolism is we are on the risk of a global warming. In the worst situation, when the temperature rising in until 11 degree, so most of the ice from the North Globe and the South Globe will melt. So most of the area surrounding the Southeast Asia will under the sea. And the interesting figure is that if we keep producing more carbon, then the figure here showing that the number of the carbon will be much 10 times higher than the mountain of Everest. Also, that the very famous book of Marshall Berman, uh, on that is solid melts into air, that he's going to critique the modernity that's just burning everything to create what they want to create, the income. And also one study about urban ecosystem that happening in Brussels in 1977, that the diagram showing the in and out, the flows of the energy, the flows of the pollutants, the flows of water, and the flows of material. It's showing that Brussels is not sustainable at all because it's required too much inflows from outside to support the city. Another example from Kenzo Tange in Japan is showing the concept of metabolism that consider the cities as a process. So it's actually the avant-garde of urbanism and architecture that's showing that they're thinking about the future typology of city, how the cities will grow after we going on the land. So most of the time they're looking for that how we settle on the sea and also the sky. It's actually the perception of the new city after the post industrial time. A very old school section, the work of Geddes, that's showing that the topography, the different ecological floors where the human are settled. And actually, we can see that the cities always settle in the flat area. But to looking into this section, we have to understand that the city is actually belong to the ecosystem. It's not taken out of the ecosystem. We have to understand this as a part of the nature. The research of my PhD, the forest and water urbanism to adapt to the global warming occurring in central Vietnam, get this valley to another level that I consider the topography of Vietnam is in the different ecological floors from the mountain foothills to the alluvial plain. And if I just cut one section through the territory, then I can see that each of the ecological floors has different soils, different vegetation, but also different types of waters. This means that we need to think about a different way to settle on different ecological floors. And it's actually in the past, in 15th century, in Vietnam, there was several minority groups, ethnic groups, Cham, Khmer, and Việt people that settling together on top of the topography, on top of the ecological floors, and they actually relying on the nature to sustain. And between them, there's always the exchange in culture, but also the exchange in materials. And they are just settling with and within the landscape, which means they move with the circle of nature. For example, the mountain peoples, they always move back and forth between different forests to wait for the forest to recover itself. And the plant people that's living with the rhythm of the floods, the water come in and come out, and they keep the water to make to conduct rise. And also the typology, the architecture they use here is also to adapt to the dynamics of the water system. So the question is it possible to level up the metabolism of ancient village at the city scales and to reimagine the contemporary urban landscape as a more resilient framework for development? So the next step is we going for the speculative design, which we use design as a tool for research. Then it's happening in just the last year studio resilient landscape design. And here's all the participants from the studio. In the studio, we use the approach from territorialism, which that we looking the whole territory as a project. And if we consider that the territory as a palimpsest, a territory is a geographic space, a physical collection of quality and characters. It is a collection of particular place and position. This is the resources where goods, service, and values are produced. The territory is actually a palimpsest, a thick description of what is going on the earth. So if we think and if we build a territorial project, it's a great opportunity to question our idea of a future, to apply the test under the different scenarios, and to propose such a vision that aspires to become collective. And as I mentioned before, design is not just an assignment, design is as a tool for questioning the future development. And here we are looking for Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City, the biggest metropolitan, the economic center of Vietnam is actually lying here, uh, right next to the Saigon and Nile River. That just uh, that just touch the Mekong Delta. So if we solve all the problems about the water, about the urbanization, about the forest here in the city, it helps to reduce the burden for the Mekong Delta. So the next is we'll look at the extensive water system because Saigon, the city, was actually located on the higher land next to the Saigon River. And to protect the city from the floods, there was a gigantic canal that as a bypass to take the water from the Saigon River to go surrounding the city. And in the middle of the city, there was a Tham Luang Canal that's working as a irrigate canal that collects all the water and take the water out to go to the Mekong Delta and release to the seas. And if we looking at another layer when the French came, so the environment of the Saigon is actually the combination between the green one and the blue one. The green is including gardens, agricultural landscape, mostly the rice field, then also the forest, the existing forest of the city, and uh, and most of the settlement except the Saigon cities is what is being imposed by the super grid, the grid system. The rest of the settlement as settling in the cluster system that are working as islands on top of the alluvial plain. And as described by Professor De Mulder in KU Leuven, that the urbanism in Saigon is actually the interlace between forest and water system. Since the French came, the urban forestry was introduced for the purpose of creating the microclimate environs for the French because they are afraid of the heat and the wet of the tropical climate, but as well as for exploitation because that's the colonial concept that they just want to exploit from the agriculture, exploit from the forestry, exploit from the mineral. And the thing is, but however, since then, the urbanization of Saigon has shifted from the water forest urbanism towards the road-based urbanism, because to build the forest to faster exploit, the French use a lot of boulevard, a lot of road, and also bring the railway. But in this image, we can see that the cities are actually very close relationship with its own agriculture land or the countryside. So perhaps that we will think about the hypothesis that can we use again the the metabolism that used to be the past, but to level up into another level. And since 2000, the water and forest landscape has disappeared because of a drastic urbanization and industrialization. The city has expanded more and more to the west and taken over productive landscape, mainly the rice field at the west and in the lower land. This has significantly reduced the amount of permeable area that can absorb the water. Besides that, the planned and spontaneous urbanization has taken place quickly and densely, making Ho Chi Minh City one of the urban area with the lowest density of trees in the world. So consequently, the city is more vulnerable to the consequence of the global warming. So till now, the population is 10 million, but 2030 the population will be 15 million and 2050 will be 25 million. So the prediction of the population is always double, double, and double. So we need to think about a radical way to shift, to change the way how we plan the city. And since 2019, the Ho Chi Minh City government has shifted to expand and heavily develop to the east side of the river. So the question has posed is it the right time to think that the west side is now about how we can re-articulate, re-enhance the water and forest landscape instead of keeping growing, growing, and growing. And so, as I mentioned before, that the city are totally covered by the gray infrastructure, and this is actually the leftover of the blue-green system, mostly surrounded at the urban fringe. And inside the cities, there are very little dot, little islands are still there. But if we're looking at by drone, we can see that all of this kind of agriculture area, open landscape are very value for the city to be sustained, and as well as to it also help to grow the city, to nurture the city, to feed the city as well, and then also to help to control the flood, also help to reduce the urban heat islands. But we can also see that
Sorry,
it's growing more and more.
sorry
Yeah,
to
I'm
jump
going.
in. Can you please wrap up for like 1 or 2 minutes?
Okay. So
Thank you.
if we think that the development will be slowed down, then on the west side, then we can have an idea that to start with the design. So we think that the cities has a high and low topography. Most of the city are growing on the higher land, and then the flood prediction of 5 meter. And then here we see that most of the red areas uh, are affected by the flood, and the place to really replace the the transform is an industrial area, then we can expand it into the water landscape, and then it's actually that how can we can use the water metabolism, and then using the cut from the water landscape to protect it by the landform, the hard landform, and the agriculture, and also enhance the cluster system of the city. And at the end of the day, that we have a mega landscape structure of an alternative productive parts, which can help to protect the city from the global warming consequence. So that's it for my presentation.